What's your creepiest glitch in the Matrix or unexplainable thing that's ever happened to you? I was on vacation on Florida visiting a friend. We were walking on the beach on a perfectly sunny day when everything went black for a second. I think it was weird but explained it away thinking that my eyes were playing tricks on me until he looked at me and said, "Did everything go black for a second?" The entire world have slowed down for me a couple of times in my life. My best guess is some kind of adrenaline spike causing my brain to go into overdrive. It isn't creepy, but when I was in high school I had a dream I was in all white classroom, totally white. Like the ones you would see in a dream. And a girl was sitting in the chair on my side. During the dream, I knew it was a dream because that girl was a senior. We didn't have common classes. About 6 years later, I was at a master class. The sun was shining bright outside. The classroom was very illuminated. And I see this girl on my side. We are doing masters together. And having a class. In all white freaking classroom. Of course I remembered the dream at that very moment. About 2 years ago, I went to collect my husband from the ferry after work. My husband got into the car and as I was driving very slowly out of the car park we both noticed two people standing a few meters in front of our car. It looked as though they were strangers. Older looking professionals. Both walking to their separate cars in different areas of the car park. The man was reaching into his side bag and the lady was further ahead than the man. With her head turned to the right. I know the exact positions they were in because they were completely frozen on the spot. My husband and I sat there watching the frozen strangers. Not saying anything to each other, and then all of a sudden it was like someone pressed play and the two strangers just continued on like nothing had happened. My husband and I promised to each other that we would never forget how weird the experience was. I can't remember exactly how long they stayed frozen like that, but it was long enough to freak us both out. Two things. Each was witnessed by at least one other person and both were while driving. Once at a stop sign in a neighborhood. All of these little sparkles started swirling around in midair roughly 3-4 feet off the ground out of nowhere. The group of them were roughly 2 foot wide by 3-4 feet tall. It lasted 3-5 seconds and then they were gone. No one was around, and when I asked my passenger if he saw it too, he breathed a sigh of relief and said yes. We spoke about it a little more, but there is no reasonable explanation. The second happened when myself and 3 friends were driving down an empty country road. Very straight stretch. A man on a bike appeared. Someone said to watch out for him. So not to hit him, and then he disappeared. Our minds were blown to say the least. Just poof and he's gone. Around 12 years ago I had a dark purple 3 Series BMW which I drove to work and parked in the same spot for around 3 years. I sold the car due to mileage and wanting something a little more reliable and purchased a different car. 1 week later, I turn up to work to find my purple BMW parked in my parking spot. I was totally WTF. Turns out that we had a work experience kid start that day. And his dad had dropped him off in my old car that he bought 2 days earlier. What are the chances of that? I've never met this kid or his dad. And yet here was my old car in my space. 1985. My ex-wife and I were sleeping. There was a small sliver of light coming in through the window from a street light. So the room and bed were dimly visible. Our black Pomeranian was at the end of the bed asleep. I dreamt that I woke up. Reached down to pet him. And he turned into a glossy black bivalve oyster thing which opened up to reveal rows of gleaming glass teeth. I woke up to my ex backpedaling up the bed over the pillows towards the wall. I asked what's wrong? ? She said. What is that shiny black clam thing with the teeth at the end of the bed? ? Where's the dog? We had had the same nightmare at the same time. This still gives me a chill. After my little brother was murdered the next morning I was talking with a friend and he mentioned this other dude I went to high school with younger brother had died in a car accident a couple weeks before. Later that day I pull out a slip of paper with this other dude's number and name on it from my pants. I vaguely remember running into him a year or so before this at a club where he gave me his number. I swear I had worn and washed these jeans at least a dozen times since I had run into this dude. I still makes no sense how that paper was there and I only found it then. I called the dude and we talked a bunch. It really helped me deal with the situation. It's an odd thing where people close to me talk about things I was previously thinking of before I see them. A total of 3 times in my life I have had memories of seeing movie trailers that hadn't been made yet. It's not even a feeling of deja vu. It's a clear vivid memory of seeing the movie before. I was reading Kurt Vonnegut's last book, Timequake, and had put it in my backpack to read while on the bus. I left the house and for some reason about a block later I thought to myself, did I put the book in my bag? I looked and it wasn't there. Went back to the house and couldn't find it. Retraced my steps to where I turned around and it was nowhere to be found. I never found the book again. And gave up on trying to get another copy. I think it was Vonnegut's way of telling me it wasn't worth the read. I was walking my dog and I was almost to the driveway when I looked down for some reason and I looked back up and I ended up being back at the road about 6 blocks away from where I thought I was. I was so confused but my dog looked completely fine. For your information, I don't drink or do drugs. I'm still pretty young. I had just pulled into the parking lot of where I worked and was walking towards the building. It was like 3 in the afternoon. Broad daylight. All of a sudden, I heard an ambulance's siren start sounding. Naturally, I looked down the road to try and see the ambulance. I see it approaching and decided to watch it for a bit. It was quickly getting closer. And it was about to pass right by me. However, there was a large SUV waiting to turn out of the parking lot and onto the road, blocking a few meters of the road from my view. The ambulance passed behind the SUV, probably about 50 feet away from me at most. And I vividly remember the siren becoming completely silent in that instant. The ambulance had vanished entirely as it passed behind that SUV. I was so confused. The road did not have many cars on it at the time. And it was broad daylight. I did a triple take and made sure that I didn't just miss it. I had a clear view of the road going both directions. And there was no more ambulance to be seen. No more siren either. I walked up and down the road, trying to find it for a solid minute. But nope. It was gone. I was well rested. Not on drugs. And I didn't have a history of hallucinations. It seems dismissible. But I was completely aware of what happened. And I can't explain it to this day. I was driving about 50 miles per hour. And a car ran a stop sign on an on-ramp and pulled out right in front of me. I remember bracing for impact and then I was about 300 yards down the highway and I saw the car at the ramp in my rear view. Just about to pull out. A friend and I went to a buddy's house for a day party. Stayed up playing Halo 2 and hanging out. We all crash in the basement. Friend who came with me and I got up at the same time. Not like one after each other. We both got up at the same time after being asleep for a few hours and rushed to the bathroom. Was more athletic than me, probably still is, and beat me there. I ran upstairs, barely getting my head over the toilet before puking my guts out. I was doing the same thing in the basement. I was wearing a wooden cross my grandmother mailed me from Romania. I'm not religious but I appreciated the gift as I had never met her at that point. Cross somehow became detached from the cord. Fell on the tile and broke into 2 pieces. So we both call our respective mothers and get picked up. By now it's like 3 to 4 AM. Felt sick up until we left the house. Once I was in the car and a few blocks away. Felt perfectly fine. I reported the same thing to me that day over MSN Messenger. Felt perfectly fine after a few blocks. Got the pictures developed a few weeks later. There's a picture of us on the couch rocking some Halo and the whole room looks like it's filled with mist. Super spooky. I've been looking for the pic for a long time and I can't seem to find it anymore. But every few years my sister and I search my mom's photo albums for it. My sister pretended to feed my bear when we were kids. I saw the beans on the spoon. She put it to his mouth and scooped. Showed me the spoon and the beans were gone. No beans on his lip. Nothing. Like he actually ate it. She never told me how she did it and she doesn't remember doing it now. Around 12 years old I was watching Megas XLR. Or something that was on at the time. Sitting there I noticed that the sun just turned off. Like completely. I was real confused. Opened the blinds and it was dark. Show was still at the same spot. But the clock on the cable box said it was 5 hours later. My best guess for what happened was that I passed out without realizing it. Like those nights where you lay in bed and blink and suddenly it's morning. So I'm guessing I fell asleep sitting up. For exactly enough time to have Cartoon Network play a run of the show get to the exact spot I fell asleep at. Was surreal though. I think most of the people here have experienced the something falls down and seemingly disappears thing. But the exact opposite happened to me a couple of months ago. Basically me and a bunch of friends were standing in a circle in our school's hallway. When suddenly we heard something fall. We all simultaneously looked at the floor. And there was a small silver foreign coin, Swiss I think, just laying there. I picked it up and asked if any of them had dropped it. And they all denied. I looked around and there was nowhere it could have come from. And the hallway was empty. So there was no one who could have thrown it. Later we joked that someone in Switzerland probably dropped it. And is now frantically looking for it. I still have the coin in my locker. So if anyone wants pictures, I can take some when Monday rolls around. When the song The Final Countdown was released in the 80s. I already knew it. It was brand new. Just released. But I knew the tune and the words and could sing the whole thing beginning to end. I believed for a while that it was a cover version. But it wasn't. I've told this story before and could go into a ton of detail but here's a short version. I am 100% sure I vividly remember a dog that apparently doesn't exist. When I was 16 we lived on the other side of the province and my uncle had this little Jack Russell named Crew. Crew went missing for several months and then turned up at a humane society over an hour away and we were all shocked this little dog has made it so far. Anyway that was almost 20 years ago and the other day I was talking to my parents and was like whenever I hear about Jack Russells I think about Crew and that stunt he pulled and they had no idea what I was talking about. Insisted my uncle had never had such a dog. I must have dreamed it. Etc. Honestly anyone else who would have remembered this dog has been dead for a long time and I don't even have any pictures of my uncle. I have absolutely no way to prove this dog existed but I'm sure that he did. I don't personally remember this. But I would see my dead grandfather all the time when I was a kid. From the ages of 7-9 there was probably 10 different incidents. My dad was an absolute pansy when it came to ghosts, which I don't really believe in, and wanted to take me to the doctor. My dad had one of those bathrooms with a separate toilet room and no one that lived in the house closed the bathroom door unless they were bathing. I was playing RuneScape and my dad asked why the bathroom door was closed. And I said it's because grandpa's in there. That's the only one I actually remember. There was maybe 2 other bathroom incidents and some incidents when I would sit on the floor and watch TV with my dad and he would tell me to go sit in the what was once my grandfather's chair and said I couldn't because grandpa was sleeping. I don't know how creepy these are tbh but they freaked out my family for sure. Every time I drop something and it literally disappears to nothingness. Like WTF? I was working on my motorcycle in a dirt lot where I had crashed it trying to do a sick drift. Breaking off the clutch lever and the gear shifter. I had brought a wrench set with me and I was using one of them to take off a bolt when I put it down on the ground to finish unscrewing the bolt with my hand. 2 minutes later I went to pick it back up and it was gone. I ran all around this dirt lot looking for it to no avail. Luckily I had a spare in the car. Fixed the bike and drove back to my apartment to shower as I was filthy. I walked in my room and sitting on my desk was the wrench. I was dumbfounded. I have a jade Buddhist necklace I bought in China about 10 years ago. It disappears for months at a time only to reappear somewhere obvious like my desk. My dresser. In a drawer I use every day. I just say it goes on a trip and will come back eventually. Not me but a buddy of mine. We were playing Xbox and we both have Elite controllers which have magnetic joysticks that pop right off so you can switch to another. Well, he tossed his on his bed and went to the bathroom. He came back to find his right joystick missing. I let him use mine because I prefer the longer ones. During the summer he texted me saying he found it at his dad's house, 150 miles away from where he regularly hangs his hat, his mom's house. My wife passed away a year ago today. Had some odd things happen, like a couple of old meaningful pictures show up that I swore were in storage. The strangest one was I vacuumed the carpet and as soon as I was done a diamond ring was on the ground right where I had just cleaned. It was like she was saying, hey, this one is real, don't lose it. I remember driving my car to this intersection in this rural area and I'm checking both sides because of terrible blind spots. In the corner of my eye my mother is sitting there and says something like it's all clear my way. I look back and she isn't there. My mother had been dead for a few years at this point. This was also in the middle of the day and I've never had it happen since. Edit. Wow, my first award. Thanks. When I was living with my parents, my dad was cleaning out one of his drawers and found a piece of paper with a postcode for a nearby city on. When he showed me I immediately recognized it as my own handwriting, except I have no memory of ever writing out this postcode. So I punched the postcode into maps to find it is a random street I have never visited before and I have no reason to visit it. I wish I had have gone. Maybe the universe was trying to show me something. Might get buried but oh well. When I played baseball as a kid, they were handing out the trophies at the end of the season. They called out the names of the kids while we received our trophies. There happened to be a kid with the same name as me. We met after the ceremony because it was weird since our last name isn't a very common one. We had the same birthday and everything. We looked alike. Both our dads were named Derek and both of our sisters were named Lily. As a kid, I found it cool. As an adult, I find it cool and also disturbing. I always have weird visions or I'll see something in a dream, but I won't notice that I've seen it. Then like a week or so after I'll see the exact same thing. Almost like deja vu, but not quite since it hasn't actually happened before. It would always be something so specific and it has happened multiple times, so it can't just be a strange coincidence. Hey you. Thanks for watching Reddit Stories. If you enjoyed the video, consider hitting like and subscribing. Your support means a lot. We also have a Discord community where we will be running giveaways and fun surprises throughout the year. Come along and meet some new friends. You look great today.